Greetings, everyone. This is Dawn Boyani again from femtechonline.com, and I run a women's wellness blog. I write about basically my personal experience being a survivor of generational narcissistic abuse, and then organizational narcissism from recreating those same root family patterns by joining an unhealthy spiritual community that was led by someone that recreated that same family dynamic that I grew up with. So I wanted to write to you tonight about narcissistic abuse because it just happened to me, and I'm in a great amount of pain. And anyone that has been in relationship with a narcissist, be it a lover, a parent, a close friend, an employer, um, it's one of the most violent types of abuse because oftentimes it's psychological. And in other types of abuse where someone is physically assaulting you or sexually assaulting you, it's very easy to demarcate yourself from the perpetrator because there's an actual crime that occurred that's empirically proven. But with narcissistic abuse, um, the kind of back and forth and the sort of wooing you in for the narcissist's um, supply and to build up their self-esteem and self-worth at your expense. It acts like love. And oftentimes, if you've been in relationship with a disordered person like that, um, you know, they've hurt you so much that you're kind of like the walking wounded as far as that relationship is concerned. And um, the moment that the person would come back to you and resolve this, it actually feels like such a relief. So even though you've been abused by this person, be it a family member, coworker, lover, spouse, you're hurting and it feels unresolved. It feels like a raw, open wound. So when the person comes back against all that is intuitive and sane, you'll re-engender the relationship and hope that this time it'll be different. Now they've sort of finally seen the light and they're going to be accountable, callable for how much they hurt you, and they're going to apologize and everything's going to be okay. So we keep on going back to these people with the hope that they have conscience and that they care and they want to resolve what was hurtful. So that's actually called a trauma bond. These bonds are really intense biochemically. It's like Pavlov's dog. You're kind of, always hoping that you're going to have the pellet. It's like you wait around for that, and it can become obsessive. It can become debilitating to try to, seek resolve from someone who's emotionally abusive. And this type of abuse is truly insidious because um, the narcissist or disordered person will intentionally use things against you to devalue you. And it can be very subtle. Sometimes it's not always yelling and screaming, pots and pans, again, sexual or physical assault. It's just this insidious indication that I've hurt you. You're there to build me up. If you don't agree to, you know, um, the unspoken rule that you never confront a narcissist and everything, you have to walk on eggshells and sort of, uh, you know, cajole this person, then you break um, the unspoken rule, and it causes narcissistic injury, narcissistic rage, and the person can become really intensely cruel and then discard you. And then it cycles around once they've settled down and they miss you or something, then they come back around just to do it again. So it's this really unhealthy, toxic thing, but it is so heart-wrenching. I love the quote, "No scar on my heart ever came from anyone I hated." And I was just the recipient of narcissistic abuse for about an hour and a half yesterday from a parent. And we're in that situation where we have a family member and there's an inheritance and there's end of life. And my family are, just a piranha pool of dysfunction and hatred and vitriol and swearing and chain smoking and just this really like atrocious toxic energy. Just no love, no kindness, backstabbing, triangulating, dyads, triads, looking for fault, abusing, yelling, swearing, physical assaults. And then after you've assaulted someone, then the person who was the perpetrator goes and says, well, you deserved it. So that's kind of like my family. And my own husband had said, we really can't have contact with them. But me being a good Pollyanna, codependent, always hoping for the best and being eternally wounded, always will, with tears and with an open heart and with hope, kind of like a Saint Bernard, always looks, maybe that person will someday come around and appreciate me and say, I really loved you. You were a great daughter. You were a great sister. You were a great niece. I really, we value you. But my family has chosen me as the scapegoat for the whole family's shadow. And as far as I can see back, these patterns, these unhealthy, toxic, dysfunctional patterns have gone on for generations. And I have a 16-year-old daughter. I've tried really hard to not impart that toxicity to her. I think she's gotten some of it because I was raised with this, but I feel like she's fundamentally healthy, and the buck sort of stops here. I didn't do to her the same things that my family did to me, and I hope that she's, the new generation of healing. That's the best that we can do. We can't go back and we can't fix our families of origin, but we can stop the bleeding and stop recreating those patterns into the next generation. And I think I've done that. But right now I just am writing to you because, I'm like shaking and my heart rate is a resting pulse of about 100. I have a trip planned for tomorrow I have to cancel. With my family, we're going to go to the beach and hang out and be underneath palm trees. But I have to cancel that because of narcissistic abuse from my mom that went on for about an hour and a half. I was yelled at. I was counter-projected. I was blamed. I was insulted. I was told things like, well, the family wants to see your daughter, but not you. I mean, just like really vicious. Like you can't imagine that a mother would ever speak to a child that way. But that's my experience, and it's gone on for 53 years. And I've become a Buddhist and got into meditation and learned forgiveness. Meditated, cried, rebirthed, done heavy breathing, yogic stuff, upwards of $50,000 of therapy. And one phone call reopens the scar, and it's just like I'm 4 years old again, being abused by a parent. And when you're abused, I was abused actually in the crib, neglected. Part of the damage is like pre-concept. So when the perpetrator comes back, it reopens something that's you don't even have access to it in your conceptual mind. So all of my amazing techniques, I have 84,000 techniques to remedy pain, all go out the window, and they're useless in the midst of abuse. It's like, energetically, narcissists, when they are abusive, it's actually a form of emotional rape. They hoover you in by believing that they're safe and that they care about you. They forge intimacy. You open to them, and then they try to have power over you. So they say things that make you feel like you have no merit, no value. It's devaluing, insulting, condescending, using things to trump you intellectually or financially. Or my mother used to say, no matter how hard you try, you'll never be as beautiful as I am. whatever they can say to put you down, that makes them feel that they can build themselves up. It actually gives them sort of a ego bump. Um, it's narcissists are predicated on a deep chasm of self-loathing, self-hatred, disdain. And they overcompensate by being self-consumed, using others to build them up in a predatory way and discarding them when that supply is no longer feeding their vacuum, bottomless pit. So once you get hip, they get bored of you, you confront, or you're not giving them the kudos that they live on. They're predatory, they're parasitic. You get cut out. You get usually a narcissistic rage, um, sworn at, attacked, and then ultimately blocked. So that's been kind of I was raised by someone like this, primary relationship. So that's kind of the MO of my life. I encounter these people from time to time, and it's like an unspoken magnet. It's like, I think they call it trauma reenactment. There's this unspoken thing where it just kind of lights up. I meet this person who's an abuser, who is a narcissist, who is the vacuum, who is the predator. And it's like heroin. I can't, it's like compulsive. I can't not get into a codependent rapport with them where they hurt me, they break me, and then I try really hard to fix it. So this dynamic has happened time and time again in my life, in relationships, romantic relationships, even friendships. It's a constant theme with my family. A lot of them are still alive, disordered people. So, um, you know, I've worked very hard to try to do things like block people, tell them to please stay out of my life, but it's so hard. It's much easier said than done to block a family member. I mean, I guess you have very deep karma, and other people like my husband will look at the outside and say, your mother's sworn at you, she's assaulted you when you were 36 years old. She's, I mean, like, use the F word in front of your child, run around the house screaming. I mean, why would you engender a relationship with someone who's disordered or deranged or temper tantrums and emotionally violent? Like, walk away. Then I start crying, like as if I'm a baby. I'm 53 and I could start crying, and I say, because I love her. And no person, even disordered people, are all evil. And it becomes almost like an existential question, like, if I give up, then it's almost a testament to human beings being evil. Like, I don't want to let go of the hope that the person would have a conscience, heal what they did that was wrong, and we could have a relationship. So and the hope never goes away in my heart, to be able to heal these narcissistic relationships. It really is the architecture of codependency. Like, codependency is defined as you have an unhealthy attachment with someone, and they hurt you, and yet you continue to engender the relationship. They call it fight, flight, or fawn. Those are 3 different types of trauma responses. You get into high conflict, or you try to block or run away, or you try to caretake and fix everything. You take on the karma and you try to process it. So those are 3 different unhealthy trauma responses. So I admit, being a child abuse survivor, and a physical assault survivor, from a number of sources in this life, I do the fight, flight, and fawn, and the people who normal people, who weren't raised this way, you meet a toxic person and you recognize that, and you're like, wow, this person's dangerous. This person has a criminal past. This person has sworn at me. This person has devalued me. you walk away. You're like, wow, I'm out of here. But not me. I actually like kind of fall in love, or I chase after, I pursue a parent or family member, or friendship of someone that's been hurtful, because I'm so like chomping at the bit, longing to resolve it, believing that I'm lovable, believing that they must have a conscience, believing that we can all work it out. And that's how codependents work. So why it's unhealthy and why it's addictive is it's almost like with codependency, as if people become your drug of choice. An alcoholic would, even if their health is in danger, continue to drink until their liver fails, or heroin until someone ODs. You kind of do the same thing energetically with a person. Like you engender a toxic relationship of something that could actually destroy you. People die from narcissistic abuse. They can get heart attacks, clinical depression, fibromyalgia, nervous breakdowns, because it's the psychological violence with narcissistic abuse is so incredibly cruel. It usually results in a discard, devaluation and discard, like a complete cut. And the person will usually say, like, you mean absolutely nothing to me. Stay the hell out of my life. I want no contact with you. I've heard this, half a dozen times from these people. And, that type of icy cold violence, it looks good, like, oh, we're setting boundaries, but it's actually a form of the most violent way of being cruel that you can possibly imagine, because it's saying that you mean so little to me. You mean you're insignificant. Doesn't matter what I did. Doesn't matter what you feel. You mean nothing. Stay the hell out of my life. And you don't even merit of one sentence. So I mean, if someone's raping you, or if someone's hurting you and physically assaulting you, at least you matter. At least you sort of are engaged, and the person cares enough to be hurting you. I mean, like, you're still actually in relationship with the person. You're being mean something, even if you're being physically abused. And then being physically abused either through assault or through rape, it's so clear to parse out that it was a physical, concrete thing. Narcissistic abuse, or abuse from people who are cluster B disorder, is so insidious, and sometimes it's so long term. And it can be abuse by silence. And it can be, it can actually kill somebody. It's very, very powerful. Being blocked, being discarded. It's because if you're a codependent and you're into like relational resolution, conversation, working stuff out, your mind actually short circuits. You can't, you don't know where to go. Like, no therapist can fix it, no other lover, no friend. It's like, that's why I'm talking to you guys. It's like, your mind sort of short circuits, because you can't go back to the perpetrator to resolve the pain. It stays as this sort of like a record skipping. It stays in your mind stream. Like it never, it's like you can't even get on with your life. It just skips, because it's like you're constantly being told by the silence that you are the wrong one, that you're not even worth resolving it with. And this cold, icy, silent violence is murderous. I don't mean to be dramatic, but many people have lost their lives from being the recipients of narcissistic abuse, because it is so intensely conscienceless and cruel. And I believe that some of these people that I've been in contact with, including my family members now around this inheritance, they actually intend, to hurt. Like, what can I do to hurt her? What can I do? And it sounds paranoid. And if people haven't, I really commend anyone that has never been the recipient of a disordered person's abuse, because it's really heartbreaking. So how to heal? I mean, it's funny because I've studied this. I have a degree in psychology. I have a certificate as a wellness coach. I have, as I said, $50,000 of therapy, processing, meditating, seeing rainbows. I mean, I've done like everything that I can possibly think of to heal. And one conversation with my perpetrator, boom, I'm just devastated again for an untold amount of time. And then I heal and I feel strong again, pick myself up by the bootstraps, dusted off, gotten back into yoga, meditation, wellness. I'm radiant and doing well. And then I feel strong. And then another narcissist in different form, it's usually the same one in my life, my mom, will come back into the life and things will be okay for a short period of time. I open again. I hope things are well. And then, bam, another instance of abuse. It's been 53 years and it's only gotten worse. And I've only been patient, forgiven, cried, confronted, blocked. I've tried every single trick in the bag. Silence, walking away, pre-grieving their death. I mean, you name it, I have tried it. I have forged this mountain, I am like an expert in narcissistic abuse, and I'm just sitting here now on November 17th at 6:33 p.m. in Boulder, Colorado, shaking and crying intermittently for about 8 hours. And it causes a complete cognitive dissonance, because if I give up the hope that I can resolve things with a narcissist, then the world feels like you're letting evil win. You're letting the darkest part of our human beings have power. You're letting them define a loveless, conscienceless world where we hate each other and we use each other and we spit each other out. So to give up the hope, to me, it's so weird. It just feels like, you've given into the basest part of our being. So like the hope for me is almost equivalent to like something existential. Like, I hope that humans care for each other. I hope they regret when they hurt each other. I hope that someone who I cared about would see me as being lovable and good. These are very, very deep things. And that's the fuel with which we stay engaged with toxic people, because being the recipient of emotional, psychological abuse, which is, like I said, it's a form of emotional rape. It's like you become the walking wounded. And you can have a mirror resonance with these people and recreate that pattern again and again and be hurt again and again. And sometimes it can take years or a lifetime or never to heal. So, I don't actually know the resolve. I feel that, like, to just walk away and say block everything and have no contact. Yeah, I mean, that's the MO. That's what they say. That's the only method of being able to try to have a semblance of a healthy life after emotional rape. But, at the same time, allowing the perpetrator to get away with it, charm everyone by their charisma, triangulate people against their victim, it just feels also wrong too. It's like, if I can quote former President Bush, he said, silence is not peace, non-action. Non-action is not peace. So at the same note, I must have this kind of veracity or compulsion to hold abusers accountable in every way, in my personal relationships and in politics and in my religion. I found out a few years ago that there's a lot of alcoholism and pedophilia And, you know, can't really sign up for a religion and keep perpetuating it while there's a bunch of perpetrators there. I can't put pictures up of pedophiles, all day and worship them and work for them. And it doesn't sound like a really great job. Like there's gotta be, you know, better things to do than put up pictures of Catholic priest pedophiles all day long and people who've, run monasteries where kids are physically and sexually assaulted. It doesn't seem like a really holy thing. I got to find a better like religion. So I call these things out. And yeah, I'm definitely the quintessential wounded healer, social justice warrior. That was predicated on being an abuse survivor in this life. If you know what it feels like to hurt or to hurt a child, you have a whole lot of energy in your heart to fight. And hopefully I've done some good work in this life. I've worked in politics and I've worked to prevent child abuse. I've worked with seniors. I've worked as a mental health counselor. But I don't think there's any way to completely ever become so Teflon coated, so ironclad that you're not hurt by someone who you love, even if they are a narcissist, even if they're disordered. It still hurts, And I guess somehow, even being a child abuse survivor, an adult abuse survivor, like there's a kind of grace that I have to know that I can still cry. I can still love. I can still somehow have hope, in the goodness of humans, in our ethics, in our ability to change, grow, be accountable for our mistakes, for our abuse, care for each other, become tender, and heal as a species in families, friendships, communities. Like to give up that hope, to me, it's like life and death. I can never give it up. So will I ever become super boundary filled, hopeless, give up on all my narcissistic friends, community, family members? No. I'm not physically capable of giving up. I will always hold a candle of hope and love and appreciation because it actually has to do with my own self-worth. Like I believe that I'm lovable ipso facto. I believe that these people who hurt me will once once the fog clears, they'll see that I'm a good person and that I'm worthy of love. So hope prevails. But I learned something recently when I was in counseling. And the counselor talked to me about compassion and boundaries. And codependents don't like the word boundaries. We're like, boundaries. We're like, love everyone. Everyone's welcome in my heart. Everyone's welcome in my life. Like, I love everyone. I'll fight to the mat for love, for relationships, for friendships, and she said that every single person, as a counselor, is worthy of your compassion. Even people who've done heinous crimes, Pol Pot and Hitler and, sociopaths, you can understand. I mean, it does not a justification. I mean, crimes are crimes, and crimes against humanity are egregious. It's the worst of what we are. But you can have compassion. Like, I can understand the hows and whys of how someone would rise to power and do these horrible things. So everyone is worthy of your compassion, your understanding for karma, your understanding of how they came to be. But not everyone is worthy of your emotional intimacy. Your heart should not be just a doormat of openness that you wear on your sleeve that anyone can break. She said that who you allow into your inner circle of intimacy are people that have earned a place to be there through trust and through proving to you that they're emotionally safe, that they have your best interest in mind, that they will not, idealize, devalue, discard, the narcissistic pattern of psychological abuse, or minimizing you, not caring about your feelings, using you for their own gains, egoic or financial or sexual or whatever. But that, and maybe there aren't very many people in that inner circle. Maybe there's only a cat, who knows? But it's like, you know, um, the people who you allow yourself to be emotionally vulnerable to, um, you allow people into your inner circle to become very close to you. So they can hurt you, but they've earned that place into your inner circle by proving that they love you, and that there's equity, equity in the relationship, equalness and reciprocity. And, you know, that's where codependents could learn boundaries. Like, hey, we do the opposite. We actually sometimes, it's like the bad boy syndrome, or the wounded healer, or like we do the opposite. We kind of keep the people that would love us on the outside of the circle, and we because of the trauma reenactment and the resonance, we actually bring all the unwell people in. We're like, hey, come on in, let's duke this out, let's fix this karmic stuff together. So you actually bring the sick people in and keep the other ones on the out. So it's like healing would be to reverse that. You have enough self-love, self-value, and you've healed to enough of a degree where you say, to the best of you of what you can, family member, lover, child, pet, anyone, you can only be in my circle of intimacy if you've earned a place there by proving that you are a person of integrity, person of love, and that you have my best interest in mind. You don't want to hurt me. You don't want to destroy me. You don't want to use me. You're not trying to game me for some nefarious purpose, but that it's pure and it's wholesome. So those are the people. Even if it's a very small circle, it's better to have a really small circle of intimacy of people that have your best interest in mind, more than a cesspool of toxic people that only destroy your life force. So that's not compassion. Being destroyed is not compassion, So anyway, I offer this to you tonight about boundaries, but crying all day for 8 hours, having been abused by a parent at 53, kind of a big baby Yui that hasn't grown up yet. But someone once said to me that your tears are your love. So, sometimes if people are disordered, they don't value you, or they are unkind or cruel, it doesn't mean that the love inside of us has to stop. But sometimes all we can do in this life is let them go and love from a distance. And that's actually compassion, and more like Ken Wilber's integral way of seeing the world. Like, we all have a right to manifest, all of our strengths and weaknesses and all of our neurosis, and there's a place for it all in God's grace, kind of thing. And so if a person chooses to be abusive and not value me, to use people, to chew people up and spit them out, to take vengeance, those are choices that they make. Doesn't mean that I don't love the person or see beauty in them or have fond memories of them, but they can't really be in my space of intimacy if they're going to be cruel. And I mean, I'm glad I can still cry. I'm glad I can still love. I'm glad I can still get hurt. I think that would be worse, to have a heart that has gotten so jaded that it doesn't feel anymore. So I'd rather go through bouts of, paper thin snowflake grief than to become hardened and not care. I'd rather care too much than care not. not at all or not enough. So, as Popeye said, I am what I am, and tonight I'm grieving. Today I'm grieving. Um, I have a narcissist that has no accountability and no conscience. And there's nothing I can do about it. So these are my words, these are my heart. I believe in the goodness of us all, and all of my love and well wishes to everyone, always.